Welcome to another episode of the Dan Lok Show. Today, I am super excited to bring you a friend of mine who is a serial entrepreneur. Now, I thought I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur. No. Compared to Mike, I am not a serial entrepreneur, okay? He's not just an entrepreneur, he's an investor, also pro athlete. Mike Taylor. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me, my man.
And Mike, maybe take us back in the beginning. Like, talk to us about your childhood. How did you get into what you do today?
Okay, so when I was a kid, I just wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of the cool crew. And so I saw some kid that I thought was cool, and he had a skateboard. So that was the thing. I had to convince my mom to get me so I could fit in. And I started doing it, and really quickly I became just consumed by it. It was like all I could think about. I was absolutely in love with it. And it kind of never wore out. It was like the first year I was obsessed with it, second year obsessed with it. By the third year, so I was 13, by 16, my mom started getting on me about having to get a job. And I just wasn't ready for skateboarding to end. I was so in love with it that like a job meant no more. So I had to get creative and figure out a way to not work, essentially. So I came up with this plan to get sponsors and convince my mom to allow me that, like, if I could go get a shoe sponsor, a skateboard sponsor, clothing sponsor, I wouldn't have to work. And I think she thought it was so crazy that she was like, okay, look, if you can accomplish that, you don't have to work.
Right.
So
people would pay you to skateboard? No way, right?
Yeah. And look, I'm from like I didn't grow up like in LA. I'm like from this like suburb outside of LA where like it's a small town. No one's pro at anything. So she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, yeah, good luck.
And from there, so how did you get your first like sponsor?
So I found a kid in my neighborhood that had a video camera and convinced him to film me skateboard. And so I made like a 3-minute video of me doing all my hardest tricks. And at this point, there was it was VHS. So I made 40 VHS tapes.
Nice.
I started going through the magazines to look for companies who had ads where they left their address.
Yes.
And so I copied their address, put it on my tapes, and sent 40 out.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And I didn't get any callbacks, not one callback. So I just figured it wasn't good enough and I had to do a better one. So convinced the filmer to film me again, and we made another video. I sent 40 more out, and then I got 3 calls. So I got my first skateboard sponsor, a shoe sponsor, and a clothing sponsor.
And from there, how did you transition from a skateboarder to an entrepreneur?
Well, so when that happened, I was a kid. At this point, I was just getting free stuff. And so what I needed to figure out is how to make that a career was my first goal.
Okay.
And so that was 16. By 18 is when I actually turned pro. And then I ended up being a pro skateboarder for 15 years. I was a pro skateboarder, so I was 34. Wow. So that was the majority of my career. I was just in this very unique space of loving my career, but it was going to be a short-lived career, right? Like you hear about most people who like hate their jobs and they're trying to figure out like a way out. I loved my job. I didn't want it to end, but like had to figure out a way out. And that's when investing started for me. I wasn't sure how to make money. Like I made money by riding a skateboard, and I kind of looked at it like, how am I going to make money when I'm 40? Like all I do is do tricks, you know? So I think being a kid, I was fearful of not knowing how to make money. And so I figured, okay, well, if I'm making the most money I'm going to make, I need to start getting this money to work. So I started investing at a really young age. That was like my first go-to.
Got it. Which is very interesting because a lot of pro athletes where they sometimes they're very good at making money, but they're not very good at keeping it, right? Or investing. What about in terms of like investing at a time? Like how much were you bringing in, if you don't mind me asking, like just as a pro athlete? Were you bringing like a lot of money, or were you like living frugally, so you put money aside? But what were your money habits?
Yeah, so I was living very below my means because the first half of my career I wasn't making a ton. I was making about 150 grand a year in the first half of my career. Okay. Which is like, at 20 to 24, it's like, yeah, I'm cruising, I'm skateboarding, I'm making like decent money, but like
bigger, right?
In a 10-year career, and now with what I'm doing now, it's not that much money to really mess with. So my whole strategy was living very, very below my means and trying to maximize the amount. So I was just trying to save 50-60% of my income so I can invest in it, was how it started. And then as I started getting bigger, I started making a lot more money. And then I just stayed to the same principles of, I tried to stay as close to that line of, like the first budget I set, I tried to stay on that budget no matter how much more money I made, and tried to do that throughout my whole career. And almost became obsessed with that to a default, to where then I got married and then it had to change. My wife wasn't into that.
I get it. I always tell people, I build companies because my wife buys bags. That's my motivation. That's what happens, right?
Yeah, totally.
Great. Yeah, but I'm curious because a lot of people, as they make more money, as the income increases, their expense also increases, right?
Yeah,
and it's
totally.
like keeping up with the Joneses, and then it's like this. How do you have that discipline that as you make more money, but you're able to just stay below your means? Because I'm sure like the people even around you, hey man, Mike, let's get a nice car, let's get a fast car, move to a bigger house, or how did you stay so disciplined?
I mean, dude, at the core of it, I think it was fear. I think I was so scared of the unknown after skating that like I was too scared to spend because I was so frightened of what was to come. And I think that's what it was at the core, which like, and that was a challenge. Everything you're explaining now, like, dude, my friends are buying rad cars. They're buying big homes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm competitive. So like, I wanted to participate in that, and it was challenging. I mean, a lot of it was like me really having to check my ego and like really like just maintaining the path so that I could set myself up, but dude, it's hard, especially with our society. Our society tells us everything but that,
Mm-hmm. And when you look at those friends, they were just blowing money. They don't have the self-discipline, or they're not entrepreneurial. Some of those athletic friends, right? Athletes, where are they now compared to where you are now?
Well, dude, a lot of them had a very painful transition. Unfortunately, like what I think is your lifestyle is the hardest thing to change, right? So you lose your career, your income changes, and you don't change your lifestyle till you're forced to, and then before you know it, you've kind of lost everything, right? So like I watched a lot of my friends go through like a very like rough transition out of the industry. It's 100%. It's what led me to everything I'm doing now, was just being so sick of seeing that.
So from there, talk to us about like the first business after your sport career.
Yeah. So my first business was while I was still a skateboarder.
Okay.
So I started getting older and I got my first signature shoe, which meant I had a sponsor and they were selling my name on the shoe. Right. Nice. And it was the first time I was introduced to more of the business of selling product. Right. And so I kind of, I was 23 at this point. I started discovering that the better I can be at marketing, the better I could connect with my fans or my consumer, the more sales of my shoe, the more money I make. And then I just started really enjoying that process. So that led to me wanting to do more than just push my shoe. I wanted to help with like the team and the design and everything. And the sponsor I had at the time was like, not really for that. They were like, look, dude, you're just a skater. Like, we sponsor you to skate. We're not looking for like a designer or like a brand manager. Like, you need to chill out.
Yeah.
And I just wanted more. And so I left that sponsor and went with another sponsor who wanted me to come kind of help turn their program. I had no experience working with people. So I jumped into that and it was awful. I mean, I discovered how bad I was at problem solving with other people. I did everything my own. A lot of the things I learned from skating actually really applied to business, which was really comforting. But no, the first ideas of what I thought it was going to be.
$1 billion idea, right? The first one.
Yeah, totally.
And from there, what did you learn from that business? What's the most important lesson you've learned running that business?
Oh, man. I think for me it was a handful of things. One, I learned what I'm good at and what I'm really bad at was one thing. Two, how important it is to have a good team around you.
Yes.
And putting systems in place to actually build something instead of you running around from putting out fire to fire, in a sense.
Correct.
And then
right?
100%. And then on top of that, like how hard it is to grow a business and a brand.
That's right.
You know, it is not easy, and it constantly feels like you're failing and that you're not going to pull it.
And from there, what worked? Like, did the company took off, or was it okay?
Yeah. So our first the company that we started was St. Archer. It was a craft brewery, and when we launched, it was right when Instagram started really picking up, and we had already built followings from us as pro skateboarders. So, you know, we had to raise money for that company, and, you know, we're looking at marketing budget. We were like, holy crap, you know what? We could like kill our marketing budget, just post everything on Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And it was before influencer marketing. So we built this whole story around us, promoting it all through Instagram. Right. And it was at like a perfect time where the company exploded. It was like
this was back in 2000, what time? Like
this was 2011.
Oh, 2011. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a really good time. So like we were in a scenario that we could never keep up with demand before we even opened doors. It was a wild experience. So for that company, it was different than others. It was like we were hanging on by the edge of our seats trying to keep up, in a sense, where some of the other ones that came later were like, holy shit, this is a lot harder than we thought, you know?
Yeah. So good timing.
That first one was, yeah.
Yeah, and did you at the time with like the marketing with Instagram, did you just promote it to your fans, or do you get other kind of quote unquote influencers to promote the brand as well?
So what we did with that is we had never raised money before. So when we did our capital raise, we brought it to all our friends and families.
Oh, got it.
And all my friends that I thought had money were all pro skateboarders. So looked at our investors. We had 15, 16 investors in the company that had a combined social media following of like 10 million followers. Wow. So we built the whole story based on all of us coming together to create this, and used everybody's platform to build this common.
So they're bringing in money, they're bringing capital, but as well as bringing their influence and fans, right?
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. And of course, I assume you promised them free beer, right?
Everybody got free beer.
that's the hook, right?
Everybody got free beer.
Put together some money, but you get free beer. Here we go.
Yeah. We were like, hey, look, if all else fails, man, you guys are gonna be drinking good
for a long time, right?
Yeah, for a long time.
Well, tell us a little bit about the alcohol business, because that's interesting, because it's a very, very competitive industry, right? Very, very competitive. You have a lot of different brands. So from there, for the influencers, you guys launch with just like a boom, a huge amount of demand. What about running the business, like in terms of the management? But because you guys are good at marketing, getting it out there, but what about the operations side?
So this is where we discover what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. I am not an operations person, not me. I am full of ideas that are all over the place. I'm very high energy, and putting it all together is not my skill.
Yes.
So I've always had to surround myself with people who can do that.
Right.
And so for St. Archer, we had an incredible team. We had, anywhere from Josh, who was my business partner and Paul's business partner, co-founder, from our vice president to COO. They were all incredible workers or business people. So we had just a really good team in place. So when we launched, when we started, we had about 8 employees. After the first, I think about the time when we sold it, there were about 60 employees.
Okay. Wow. And then from the time you started to the time you sold it, how many years is this?
So from conception was 2011. We opened doors 2012. We sold 2015.
That's nice. And you sold it for how much money? You don't mind me asking?
It was a little over 50.
Awesome. And then I guess all the family and friends, and they're happy, right?
Yeah, 12-time multiple. Yeah.
They're very, very happy, right?
Super happy. Yeah, super happy. It worked out.
Yes. And from there, now you have exited. You had a successful exit, and now you have like some capital on your hand. What did you decide to do next?
So I'm a big believer in real estate. I've always been a big believer in real estate. I've always participated in startups because they're fun, but it's been a very small amount of my portfolio. Where I put the bulk of it to work has always been in real estate. So when I got that exit, it was just more money to put to work for me. And to tell you the truth, I didn't start my next company really until my career was over. I was like, we sold St. Archer. I thought my career was going to end before wrestling. And when it ended, it was like, okay, crap. Like, I guess I just skate for a couple years,
Yeah, so you can keep going for
and what I didn't realize and what I didn't plan for is how hard it was to transition out of my industry, even after I had really set up my finances. Like the emotional roller coaster that was to follow, I didn't plan for it all.
like you
So that was it.
like in what ways? Was it because you were traveling with friends and you were skating, or suddenly is it like almost like an identity crisis? Like
It's an identity and ego and purpose crisis. 100% what it is. So what I didn't realize is how much of my self-worth and who I was built into my career. And so when that went away,
you've been doing it for like since like you're so young.
15, I was a pro skateboarder for 15 years.
All these years. Like, this is like what you live and breathe and sleep, right?
100%. So it's like when that gets taken from you, and now having gone through it and to a lot of athletes in other industries, it's a very common feeling of like, who am I? What am I supposed to do? Why am I here? It was gnarly. And I just was under the impression as a kid of going, if my money's right, I'm good. No one can hurt me. And dude, it was like I got kicked in the face. It was the hardest thing I had ever done.
And for our listeners, because this is profound. If someone is watching this and they are having the identity crisis, maybe they get fired from their job, right? Or maybe there's some industry changes within what they do. They could no longer do what they were doing. They have to do something new. What advice would you have for them? How did you overcome that? And how did you find your new purpose or new calling?
Okay, so really what it was is it became a battle in my head. It was like I constantly had to tell myself that this is a trial. This isn't the rest of my life. It's not going to end here. I'm in a season that's going to change, and had to just continually build myself up that I was going to get better through it. And it was hard, dude. It wasn't easy. Some days it felt like I was full of shit. But I just remember kept telling myself, like, okay, you're going to get through this. You're going to find yourself. You're going to, and once I started like going down that path, I started creating systems to help my mind stay sharp in a sense. I started doing a morning routine. I started journaling. I started doing words of affirmation. I started building out a whole kind of paragraph of who I was going to be, and would tell myself that every single morning. It was like, it was a war that was going on through my head that I just had to like push through on. And it's not easy, but the one thing I could say is you're going to get through it. You have to keep looking forward, and you're going to look back on that moment, and it's going to be one of the greatest things that ever happened to you. But while you're in it, it seems very dark and like there's no way up.
And I want to talk about real estate as well. Like, what type of real estate do you like? What are some of the investments, and what are some of your philosophies when it comes to
So I'll tell you what I'm doing now, and then we could go into this. So when I was going through this whole period of not knowing who I was, I got a call from another pro skateboarder to check in on me. He was like, yo, dude, are you okay? Like, what's going on with you, right? And I started telling him all the problems. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm trying to come up with all these ideas for companies. None of them feel like me. And he goes, dude, I know you're like going through a hard time, but I think you need to take a step back and look how thankful you are. You have a wife, you have 2 kids, you have a home. You haven't mentioned money once. Like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, I hope I can be in that position when I go through this, because he's currently a pro skateboarder. And it was like, that conversation that made me go, you know what? I am fortunate. There's a lot of my friends that are going to have a transition out of skateboarding that's not going to be like mine. I'm like very fortunate to have to go through this and just work on the emotional side.
Grateful for, right?
Yeah. So then that's what led to me wanting to create an opportunity for them to help them start planning and actually build an opportunity for them to invest and start building passive income to help them plan for their exit. And that's why when I started this company, which is Commune Capital, which is a real estate fund, and what we invest into is multifamily apartments. That's my favorite asset class. It's not the only one that works. I've been investing in the storage units for a long time. There's a lot of them that are working, but multifamily that's more my jam.
So I want to go deep with like multifamily storage units. Talk to us maybe the first couple of deals that you did that worked okay, but talk to us about one deal that was like awesome.
So you want me to talk as far as me being an investor in them, or me now being okay? So one of the ones that I was a part of, they bought a gas station with 7 acres of farmland behind it.
Okay.
And they ended up knocking down the gas station. They developed, it was about 250,000 square feet of rentable storage space.
Nice.
And it was like one of those deals where like, it was $1.5 million that they raised. I think all in, it was like $7 million. The property is currently valued at like $36 million. It's like one of those just unicorns.
You hit out of the park, right?
That one was hit out of the park.
That's a home run right there.
Yeah.
Now, we're not saying every deal is just like that, right?
They are not. No.
And sometimes you cannot predict what's going to happen, right?
No, totally.
When you look at a deal, how do you look at a deal? What's your due diligence kind of process? Like, what do you look for?
Yeah. So really we look for a deal that we think we look for basically a good scenario, a not so good scenario, and all hell broke loose scenario. And we look at how the investment is going to react in those periods. And if we feel like we can, in a good scenario, we can make money. In a bad scenario, investor doesn't lose money. And oh shit, this didn't work out, investor still doesn't lose money. Those are the deals we look for. And then if we perform beyond that, then it's icing on the cake. So really what it comes down to is we're in a high cycle in real estate for anybody who follows real estate, right? Yeah. So we're dealing with very low cap rates. We're dealing with interest rates that have been rising, and in a lot of areas, buildings that are hard to get to cash flow, right? So really what we look at is, okay, if interest rates still rise, what is our strategy and what happens during a correction, and can we survive a correction by buying this property? Right. And for us, we're long-term holders. We buy and hold. Okay. So we look at our timeline and kind of at the end of the day, put a prediction on how we think it's going to perform through that. And if we think if the percentage looks very more favorable for us to do it, then we move forward on it.
And are there certain cities and areas that you like? Yes,
definitely. So kind of what we focus on is areas that are transitioning, or I guess a lot of people call it gentrification. I look for areas that are becoming cool. And a lot of times skaters, artists, the creatives are the first ones into these neighborhoods, right? Because rent's cheap. So they go in and it's like, it's not a very rad neighborhood, but they're so creative that like they have cheap rent. They want to make it cool. And then the community starts rising with them, right? So we kind of go in and look for those areas. And then we look for properties that are either distressed, can be repurposed or developed. And we develop them to fit where the community's headed.
That's actually very creative, because it sounds to me that you're approaching real estate not just, here's a piece of property, that's it. You put money into it, but you also kind of apply your entrepreneurial spirit, right? You are thinking about problem solving, almost thinking about real estate as a product, right? How can I offer this product to may not be the right product for this city or this neighborhood, but it's a perfect product for this neighborhood.
Yes. So we are not I would not say we're a conventional real estate fund. Yes. I would not say that. The areas that I'm looking for are, I'm looking for a certain tenant is really what I'm looking for. It's a much more youthful tenant. I'd say anywhere from 20 to 34, where it's like the bulk of millennials, maybe some Gen Z, and how we're designing them. I feel like we're creating buildings for them. Right. And it's like, I think for me, like coming from skateboarding and building brands, me just investing in a property is not enough for me to do this. Like I want there to be some type of creative process. Like it's more fun to me. So I found something that's fun to me and actually is a great strategic advantage for us to then drive returns higher than our competitors.
And do you use, I'm just curious, do you use your social media to promote the property?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Share with us, how do you do that? That's fascinating.
So I would take a step back, actually. There's more than goes in than just promoting the property. Really, I'm promoting the investment through my social media to people. And a big part of this for me is like, it's like what we talked about when I was a kid. I wasn't taught finances, something I didn't learn in school. I had to learn this as I went. And for where I'm at, like it's not the message that's told to these kids. No one talks about living below your means. No one talks about saving. No one talks about future. No one talks that this moment right now is not going to be forever, that it's going to change. And I want to do something that like shows and inspires the generation below me to start paying attention to this stuff. So I use my platform to educate them, to show our investments. And then we do our buildings. It's less about me posting the building for lease up and more about getting people involved and understanding what we're doing. And if they want to be an investor with us, come on board. If you want to go do it yourself, go do that. I just want people to participate one way or another.
I love that. So basically you are educating them about who you are, what you stand for, what you're about, right? And then from there, if they buy into your vision or your philosophies, and then they're much more likely to be an investor. If they don't even buy into your philosophies, obviously, then they will not be the right fit for you, right?
100%. I'm treating it the same way I sell, like when we raise money for our business, right?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same.
It's the same thing. I'm treating it the same as anything I've ever done.
Right.
It's the idea, but it's more than the idea. It's the person bringing the idea to life. Right. So like really, like I want them to invest in us and our mission and feel part of what we're going out to do. Same way when you sell a product, right?
Yes.
You don't just sell a product. You sell what the consumer is going to feel when they buy the product.
The emotions.
100%. I go about it the same exact way with this.
And now with your social media, what are you doing to promote more or to gain even a bigger audience? Like what's your social media strategy? What's been working the best for you?
Oh man, from like an engagement standpoint.
Yes.
I feel like it's
growth standpoint too. Either way.
I feel like it's changing every 2 weeks.
I thought it's changing like every 2 days.
Oh my gosh, it might be. I feel like every time I think I've figured out the algorithm, it changes. You know, I've actually gone very simple on it. It's like I spend way more time trying to build a community and less focus on just trying to gain a number of followers.
Love it.
You know, so it's what's happened. And once I did that, it's like I have like people that are like participating instead of just liking, which is a big thing. Now,
say that one more time. It's so good. Liking versus.
Liking versus participating. I want people here and part of it, not just hitting my like button. I want them like fired up and part of my community, you know? So I've been spending a lot of time on that. I am doing strategies to grow, you know, talking to other pages, to put my content in their pages, growth hacking. I am doing those strategies as well, but as far as what I'm focused on, building community.
And it's Instagram, your number one platform that you focus on?
It's my favorite. Yeah, I have them all: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Instagram that's the one I like the best.
Yes. And when it comes to Instagram, let's say someone, again, if they're watching this, they're listening to this, and maybe they only have, like, they don't have like the big followers that you have. Maybe they are just dabbling a bit and they're experimenting with Instagram, right? Even like starting today, maybe they watch this interview, they listen to this interview, they say, okay, this is awesome. I want to jump into Instagram. What are some of the steps you would give them? Like what should they focus on first? What should they focus on second?
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I think if you're going to look at using it as a platform, you need to treat it like it's a business in a sense, or a brand. The same things apply. You need to figure out what your message is.
Right.
What is your end goal by doing this with Instagram? What is the message?
Who are you trying to attract, right?
100%. So you almost have to like build out this brand strategy in a sense. Okay. What are you going to talk about? What are the 3, 4, 2, what is going to be your core message? What are the like principles that you're never going to veer off of? And once you have that, like, let's say, like for me, right? I talk about investing, personal development, failure, and my family, right? Those are generally the 4 things. So it's like, okay, these are what I'm going to do.
Core values, right?
My core values, right? And then it's like, okay, what do I want to say? And then how do I build it out? How do I want it to look? And then you just start building it out. The thing I think people get lost on Instagram is people struggle with like being disciplined to being building a brand as opposed to just being a personal app in a sense, you know? So I have a lot of friends who like started their Instagram just to like have fun with it. follow people, participate, use it, I think more for what the app was built for. And then they want to start using it to like promote their business. And they have a hard time switching over to like, okay, now it's only going to be about a business and my personal life actually kind of goes away in a sense. And, you know, I think it's as simple as like creating to like what you can post and what you can't post, right? Like if you're a hairstylist and you're posting about cutting hair, don't go post a meal or don't go post like your friend's birthday party. It doesn't relate to what you're trying to accomplish in a sense, right? So, you know, I think you need to like really decide what you're doing. Like what is my purpose here? And then create like guidelines to what you're going to go build.
And I think sometimes that those are personal moments where it adds a bit of personal touch, and that's perfectly fine. But that's that ratio, right? That
100%.
There might be some posts that you know certain posts would get more eyeballs and more views, more likes, but they may not help your business, right? Some of my most profitable posts, they're actually not super popular, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's funny how that works, right?
Yes, 100%. I would say too, for people getting started, don't get so caught up with like how your photo performs or how your video performs.
Yes.
You got to really look at like the quality of content you're putting out. Because I'm with you, man. The stuff I put out that I feel like is the most valuable gets the least amount of engagement.
Yeah.
And I'll go do a kickflip outside. It's going to get the most, right? But I'm like, dude, I just put my heart and soul. I feel like people could take so much from that last one. You guys didn't care at all, you know?
And I always tell my students, well, you know, it's good in social media, it's great, but you cannot go to the bank and deposit likes, right?
No.
You deposit like comments, right? You have to deposit cash, right?
100%. The only way you do that is if you build an actual like cult following.
And when it comes to your investment fund, do you only take accredited investors? Like, how do you work with investors? Like, you know, how do you charge? Like, do you charge a management fee? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so that is my biggest pain point right now is that we can only accept accredited investors at this moment.
Yes.
And you can imagine how many of my followers are non-accredited.
Correct.
So, you know, that's something we're actually looking into right now. Right now it's a Reg D offering. So we're looking into a Reg A offering, which would allow non-accred. But at the moment, yes, accredited only. We do have a management fee. So how our structure works, we have a management fee. Our investor gets an 8% preferred return. For anyone who doesn't know, preferred return means investor needs to make that preferred return before managers get to participate.
Yep.
And then once 8% preferred returns hit, and we have a split, we have our carry investor has theirs. So we have two kind of breakdowns. For an investor who comes in under $1 million, it's a 65-35 split. For an investor who comes in over $1 million, it's an 80-20 split. Our management fee is 2%. 2%.
I love it. And I assume, of course, most of the investors, as you grow, the return, they kind of keep reinvesting their earnings back with you anyway. That's
I would say, yeah, I would say the majority of people do that. And that's something that I've done this whole time is I made money as a skateboarder. I never needed it. So I kept rolling it over and let my investment compound. Most of our investors do the same as well.
What's your goal for the investment fund? How big do you want to grow that?
That's a great question. I mean, I could throw out a number. It's something.
$1 billion. Is it $1 billion?
Yeah,
Let me guess.
Let me get $1 billion fund. To tell you the truth, what we're talking about now is like, that's how I went into it. Same way. I want $1 billion fund. I think but what I'm kind of realizing is that it's less about the size. Actually, it's kind of what we just talked about with social media. A real estate fund operates the same way. It's less about the amount and more about the performance. And so, I mean, if we're being realistic, I would say I'm hoping to have a combined, like for the combined amount of funds that we do, $500 million, I'd say.
Awesome.
That's what my goal's at.
I agree with you because just because you have more money under your management, it doesn't mean the fund is successful, right? At the end of the day, it's the return to investors, right?
100%.
Performing, and if they don't make money, you don't make a lot of money anyway. You want the portfolio to do very, very well, so they come back and invest more, and also bring their family and friends and referrals to your fund, right?
100%. And also what happens when you start getting into the bigger funds, we start talking about like, instead of a $1 million investment, it's a $50 million investment. Right. It's a different type of investor.
Correct.
And that investor wants a different type of economics in return. And so it just changes what we're doing. And so
it almost sounds like your philosophy is correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not that interested in the institutional investors. You're more interested in like people you understand, right? Young people. It could be your friends who are or athletes, like because you understand them.
I'll tell you straight.
They understand your product, right?
I'll tell you straight up, institutional investors don't understand me. They don't understand this. I'm not saying they never will, but right now they don't understand it because it's so different than what they see. That no, I think it's
they're too, I don't think they'll get it.
No, they're 100%. So yeah, so then that's really what it comes down to. Is like just because it's like we said, just because we're managing more money doesn't mean the investor's making more, and doesn't mean I'm making more. So at that point, it's for clout. And I could care less about that.
And I love the idea where you're already educating young people about the importance of investing. And maybe, again, they're young, they're getting started. I mean, very, very, very small percentage are accredited investors, but they have earned a little bit of money. They want to put that to work. And you're structuring a way that they participate in what you do, right?
Yeah, and that's really like a big focus right now is I really want everyone to participate. So that's why we're focused on creating a secondary fund that would allow non-accredited.
How long do you think it would take? Like, what's your time frame?
For a non-cred? Well, the timeline varies, to tell you the truth. I've heard it taking as quick as 3 months and as long as 16 months.
Correct.
Yeah, so we'll see. It really just comes down to when the government wants to approve it.
A lot of back and forth, right? A lot of back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, really at the end of the day, it's like when you're marketing an investment, the government gets very sensitive about marketing non-accredited investors. So there's so much more that goes into creating that fund. So we're doing all our due diligence right now to figure out what to prepare for to start this thing.
And within your management team, when it comes to investment fund, like who are some of the core people that you have, like your core team? So
I have 4 partners. One is a CFA, one's a CFP. Actually, 3 of my partners came from wealth management.
Nice.
Yeah, and how I met them was when I was a kid. They helped me learn all the financial literacy because they started helping me with my money.
Oh, nice.
And they have a real estate division in their firm, and they had 2 funds, and that was a lot of the real estate that I was participating in. And so there's more back end into the story, but 3 of them are my partners now. So one is the CFO, 2 of them are just principals. The other is a construction analysis analyst. And then we have a handful of people that we work with throughout the projects.
Awesome. Because Mike, your story very much follows like what I talk about in my new book, Unlock It. Can I walk you through it? Because your story is exactly like that. Because I teach a concept called the wealth triangle, right? You think of a triangle, there are 3 parts to it. And the first phase is what I call high income skills. So back then, your high income skills, your skateboarding skills, right? That's what you use to earn money. That's your skill set, right? Yep. And as you earn more money, then you transition into phase 2, what I call scalable business, which of course is your beer pint company, right? Yep. From there, you build it, you raise money, you sold it, and then the next phase is what I call high return investments, which in your case is real estate, right? Yeah. It's almost exactly like this roadmap. That's what you did. It's just amazing. I love it. And from here, it's almost like now, again, full circle, you're helping others to go through this journey as well. You know, Mike, I think you got to write a book. I think you should write a book, man.
Yeah, I you know what? I could see myself at some point. I feel like I don't know. How do you feel about it? I feel like if it's a book on my story, I feel like my story's not finished being written. So when's the right time to go about that, you know?
Dude, it's never the right time. When I wrote a book, like I thought in my 20s, that was it. Now this book is now in my 30s, and maybe in my 40s, I write another book. It's different phases of my life. And it's very interesting because think of this as like the way you document your life, right? That's the way I see it. And now I would read stuff that I wrote like so many years ago. I'm like, I would cringe. I'm like, oh, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I wrote that, right? But now I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit more mature. I look at things differently, right?
Yeah, totally.
But I really think because with your audience, your message, your story, I think will inspire so many. Not just skateboarders. I mean, all kinds of young people that they are taught to fit in a certain way in the society, and then you say, you know what? No, you can do what you love, right? And who says you cannot go from here as a pro skateboarders, become an entrepreneur, and then running a real estate fund?
Yeah.
For most people, it's like no. You don't jump from this to this. No, you could. You did it, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and for our audience, if they want to find out more about what you do, or if they want to find out more about your investment fund, or follow you on social media, what's the best way to do that?
So the best way to find me is on Instagram, just Mikey Taylor. You can find everything I do from there. If you want to look into our investment fund, it's communecapital.com.
Nice. And you say you also have a little bit of you also on Facebook and also as well as on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah. If you make it to my Instagram, you can find everything else.
Awesome. I'll also make sure my team puts a link on our show notes, includes all your social media as well.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
Mike,
that.
you should do a book, man. I'm serious.
And you know what? I'm going to remember this conversation, and if I do a book, I'll leave you in the intro saying Dan was the reason why I wrote a book.
You know what? If you write a book, I'll write a review for you if you do.
I appreciate that.
You got it. Awesome, man. Great conversation. Happy to have you. Looking forward to your fund. Maybe when you have any updates, maybe I can bring you on, 6 months, a year from now.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Have a great day.
Bye, brother. Bye.
Thank you.